Greetings, brothers and sisters. I got a little bit of an introduction to do here. I'm going to talk about my cow and goat story from yesterday. And I'm getting a bunch of normie comments from a Madonna short video that I realize is getting a lot more views than I, anticipated. So that's kind of great. I want to get to a whole list of comments because I haven't had those kind of comments in a while, and I'll explain that also. And this is also coinciding with a Journey series video I'm putting out, I guess, next week. I have another one coming out tomorrow. And then some of these things are intertwined because we're doing this meditation thing, if you're not aware of it. I have, I'm now no longer a part of the Heartfulness organization, but I'm still doing the Saj Marg meditation. That was the origin of this defunct, debauched heartfulness scam that Dodgy's running, the current master of the system. So this idea came to me. There's a number of people who are doing the meditation through this YouTube channel, and they're having problems with Dodgy's behavior even more so than maybe I am because of being new people and all. And so the idea came to me through some spiritual process that we could meditate together on Sundays, whatever time people are around the world in our different time zones. And I would say there was at least 70 comments of people trying it, which is, kind of a big turnout. The average American group meditation is like between, 12 and, 15 people, right, at a group meditation in a center. But, there was already 70 people doing this. And people reported having good experiences and feeling the transmission. People tried it for the first time. But anyways, we'll be doing it again this Sunday. If you want to join, you just have the thought that you're joining the group. We're all meditating. It's not an internet thing, right? And so those of you who are interested, you can do it or not. Based in your own choice. We're meditating for no longer than an hour. Early in the morning on Sunday. Whatever was able to do it in their particular time zone. And I'll leave links where people can comment about their experiences, and there are no wrong answers because it's an experiment that we're doing here to see if it's beneficial for people and whether I'll keep on doing it or not. So it's something for people to experience. And with that, I dropped off our cows. We moved on from our cows because of various reasons. One of my first big experiences as a homesteader was milking a cow with my family for 6 or 7 years. We milked these 2 cows and then 1 cow, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed everything about it. I really liked cows, and it was a good experience. And, my wife and I, when we started building this homestead, I've now built 4 homesteads, and some of them have been more evolved than others, and, I learned a lot more. I did better each time, right? Each time I knew things that I learned from the last homestead. And my wife and I were talking about getting cows, and, things were going south. I don't know when this was. Must have been, I don't know, right before COVID. It was after COVID. And so, we had talked about getting cows, and we got these 2 cows with the potential of milking them, right? They were a mother and her heifer. Heifer is a female cow. And they are dexter cows, which are small cows that are dual purpose. You can milk them, and they're also meat cows. And we went to this farm, and we looked at the cows, and there was 3 potential mother and child cows, but we wanted, of course, a female, a heifer, and we liked the heifer, the baby who we later named Coco. And so we got this cow named May and her daughter Coco. And May let us pet her, and she was friendly, and we felt like we connected with her. But then we hired some guy to drive her, get a trailer, and some guy with a trailer who does this regularly, to pick up the cows and drive them to our house. And apparently May didn't dig it, right? Because she was forced out of the herd, which she was, her mom and her, the herd that was there. And she, was a problem the whole way. The guy pulled in. It was late at night. He got here at like 10 o'clock at night or something. And he said it was a horrible trip, right? May was a nightmare the whole trip. And we let her out, and she had just fear in her eyes. And, cows get this look, and you can tell they're just really scared. You can see the fear and panic in their eyes. And they're big animals, and when they get scared, they, might do something that's undesirable, right? In terms of running wild. And she ran out of the trailer, and she was just running everywhere. And I was the first person, I tried to connect with her, but she clearly blamed me, right? Blamed me for, whatever happened just happened to her. Like she was, whatever experience she had as a cow, getting put into a trailer and driving. She had lived in one place her whole life, and she was a younger cow. She was 2 years old, but she had just had her, whatever it was. She was between 2 and 3 years old and had her first heifer. Her calf with her baby was with her, and she just ran around the yard wild, like just, she was just wild, like she was, I've seen cows. Most times cows are very calm, and she was panicked and she was, aggressive and she just never recovered. They say a cow will smell you once, and they'll never forget you. Like they have just really great sense of smell. I mean, that's their major sense. Their eyesight isn't great, and they have great hearing, and they just they don't forget. Like they say, an elephant never forgets, but cows as well. And so she just really didn't like us from that moment on. And any chance of milking her, I've milked. 2 different cows, but they were trained to milk. We didn't have to train them to milk, right? And training a cow to milk is a whole other thing. And bonding with that cow and connecting with them is, a whole thing. So May never really settled in, and Coco was much more friendly, and we kind of bonded with Coco, but Coco started to copy May's behavior. Like every once in a while I'd walk by and they'd get into a defensive position. I'd be, giving them feed, either hay or whatever. And they would just, they would get like don't mess with me kind of posture, like a whole thing. And Coco started being less friendly. And Coco was a nightmare because she just, we had these barrels and various things in the yard that she would just butt with her head. And she did it like all the time. We have these like big 50-gallon barrels that came from the greenhouse in our, there's a greenhouse, and they had some barrels in there which we took out. The barrels were filled with water, and they were supposed to help heat the greenhouse, but we used that space for to put shelves up against the walls. And then there was a couple of garbage cans that we were going to put like tropical trees in, but we never got the greenhouse warm enough in the winter to do that. And they were big, heavy-duty trash cans, and she would just butt these things and push them all over the yard. Oftentimes right in front of the driveway where we'd have to, we'd have to in the morning get out and move them and stuff. And she scratched one of our cars with them. She was just a nightmare. And she would knock over we have a big bucket of water for them. And she would just knock it over all the time, making a muddy mess. And then they'd be like, mooing at us because they didn't have any water, right? And we thought if she got older, she would stop doing that, but she just kept on doing it. And there was other things in our yard. We have a pasture which wasn't fenced, and we finally fenced it. But by the time we fenced it, we'd figured we'd move on. They were in our yard, and there was a place for them to go and feed and all these things. And in the pasture, there wasn't that. We didn't have it set up yet. And we were like, let's just sell them. And, we have decisions to make about our homestead and things. And they just never bonded to us. There was like no chance of them. I mean, like I said, Coco a little bit more so. But it just didn't work out the way that we had hoped in terms of possibly milking them or whatever. And when you have animals, there's a lot of input that you have with them, right? Where you have to pay for hay and grain or whatever it is, right? And so we were just, pouring money into them with no return. So we made arrangements to get a trailer from this, family of farmers who, had one for sale, and the people we buy hay from. And the trailer was too small, and the cows wouldn't go into it, so the family lent us another trailer. And we, we waited because we missed the window to bring them to where we were going to bring them, and it was a month long. It was very stressful. It was this impending day. of where I was going to try to close them in. And I'd walked by the trailer a few times, and May is hyper sensitive and, paranoid. And when I'd get close to the back where I could close them in, she'd start coming out the back. But it was a big trailer, like a 12-foot trailer. So it was going to be a race between me getting the door closed and her getting back out, like it was this thing, like a competition. And I, didn't sleep well the night before yesterday, And I went out there, but I gave them a bunch of molasses, which they love. It's basically raw cane sugar in a syrup form. And I gave them a bunch of, grain and molasses. And I got the door closed, and it was like, celebrate. It was like a holiday. I mean, I was so pumped just to get that thing done. But then I was worried, also that she was going to be banging the trailer and going back and forth, which unsettles. It's hard to pull a trailer. And the trailer, it's like anything with a big load. I had this with the first time I got a pickup truck, and I put a load of gravel in it. And the gravel shifted, and the whole truck almost swerved off the road. It was kind of, it was just kind of a scary moment that the loads can shift. And when you have living animals that don't stand still, and they can unbalance the trailer and, make it difficult to pull, right? But they didn't do that. They stood there the whole time. We got there, and, we got them, whatever that we were doing, processing them, and it just went really smooth. And the guy I was driving with, he's got a big farm, and there was a governmental issue that, I'm not going to talk about because it's not it was his personal thing, but he was explaining, his situation that he's going through, which is kind of like a sucky government thing. And while we were driving, he had his phone set on the GPS stuff, and he asked me to text his wife because they had goats that were being born, right? Their mother was due the day before, so he didn't know whether there was going to be births. And as we were coming back, the goat gave birth to 3 kids, and I'll show you that picture here. And so he was supposed to drop me off, so let's just go to your house. I'll have my son come pick me up. And my son and I got to see the baby goats because we used to have Nigerian dwarf goats. And we got them online, and there was a family that was driving. We were in Virginia, and they were driving from Tennessee. And they, I don't know, they were moving or something. They said that they would drop the goats off on the way. And they showed up at like 2:00 in the morning. It was weird. And they had a trailer, and they wanted to give us a set of baby goats. They usually come in pairs. The mother has 2 teats, so usually they have 2 babies. And they wanted to give us a mom and 2 separate babies, and we were like, no, that's ridiculous. We're not separating the mom from the kids. And so we got the mom and the kids, and they were not the best high quality Nigerian dwarf goats. They're very small goats. And we had them for a while. They lived in a doghouse, and they were pretty. They were just kind of there. They were kind of self-sufficient. But then we moved and started another homestead, and we wanted to milk them. So we had to get we had to breed them, and we had to get a buck. And there was a nearby alpaca farm, and alpacas are delicate llamas. So this woman had an alpaca farm, and the alpaca prices were like $15,000 to $20,000. She had like $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000 alpacas, which was crazy, right? Because llamas are, more sturdy, and they're far cheaper. But there's a whole alpaca industry, and I don't know if it's money laundering or what. I mean, people use alpaca fur. There's a thing there, but they're incredibly expensive. And she had about 50 of them. She was a rich woman. And the alpacas have a gestational period of like 12 months. They're pregnant for like 12 to 14 months. I forget what it is. Okay, I'm editing. I'm just going to break in here. This is my son. He must have been about 5 or 6, the son who was with me yesterday. That's our goat Jack, and he's bottle feeding him. And look at Jack's tail go. They were just great, the goats. But anyways, let's get back to the story here. And we were over there, learning about this. And I guess she said that sometimes the alpacas will reject their babies and won't nurse it. So she had these Nigerian dwarf goats that she could milk and bottle feed the baby alpacas because they're so expensive, right? She can't lose them. She had this big Great Pyrenees, these dogs that sleep with goats, and in this case alpacas, and they defend the herd. Like they will chase coyotes, anything with pointed ears, wolves, big giant white dogs, right? Very friendly, but they don't like anything with pointed ears. So it's kind of an interesting setup she had there, and she had all these Nigerian dwarf goats, and she didn't really need the male ones. And so she had this little cute goat named Ramon, right? Who was like half the size of our goats, right? And we brought Ramon back to our three goats, and and I'll pull some video clips from some of my videos of the goats, right? And I'll just run a loop here. And so my kids and I and my family watched Ramon try to attempt to mount and mate these other goats, right? They must have been in heat that day. And he was like on their sides, on their faces. I mean, and he was so small. He was like half these goats' size. But eventually he got the job done, and we had each of the does, each of the female goats had 2 kids apiece. And so we had 6 kids, and my kids and the kids used to play. And I asked my son if he remembered because he was the youngest. And it was, kind of interesting that we were, moving on for the cows, and we went and stopped and saw these goats were being born. It was just kind of auspicious, right? And just, all of it. It's a happy day when there's life born on a farm. There's significant days. And we got into farming when there was cows. We were living out in the country. We first moved from Massachusetts to Virginia. And there was cows, and they started to have babies right next to our house. There was a fence across the street. And then we went to this Amish market, quite often, and they had goats, and we saw the goats being born. And my kids were all watching this, my children, and it was, it was kind of an introduction to livestock and these things. And, there's sadness or whatever if you're going to process your animals or whatever, because you connect with them, and it's they have names, and they have relationships with them. But there's always this happiness and joy when there's life being born there, in terms of life on a farm. And and then you have these cute, like we had chickens that would go broody, and they would hatch out chicks and all these other things. I'm going to talk about this, because I had a conversation with my son, and he started to meditate or whatever. And there's a whole bunch of things that I'm going to cover in, the 94th edition of the Journey series. So I'm not going to talk about here. But the whole thing was a relief and a kind of a neat experience that happened. And so let's move on to the Madonna Xpiration date video and comments, and then I'll get into the other things I want to cover. There's a whole Trump quote that I want to go after Trump for, and more Jojo Magoo's goofiness and some other things here. So to start off with, this video has 32,000 views. It's a short video, and I didn't understand this because I've been getting so many comments about it. And I got a lot of comments from Normies who are very upset at me, right? Which I want to talk about. And well, anyways, let's just play this video real quick. As many of you guys know, I've been talking about Madonna Xpiration date in general, and her face in particular, for a number of years now. Back in the 80s when she was becoming a big star, right? Things were looking up, feeling herself. And then comes the 2000s, and things start going south. People are forgetting about her. She starts to want to be relevant again. And then she just starts getting old. A little plastic surgery, a little bit of work, a little Madonna Xpiration date, and boom. All right, now we're going it. Now we're getting it. And then she's going full ghoul. Now there it goes. The pivotal time, 2013, expiration date, right? Her face just grows monstrously. Then she goes full ghoul. Her eyes get deader. Her face gets bigger. And she's just ghouling it up, but she won't let it go. She's going to her grave. Wow, that was the grill thing going. And then she just died in 2020. And nobody's told her yet. So even by my standards, that's a little bit rough, right? Because for one, it's a 1 minute time limit. Like, I don't explain my issues with Madonna Xpiration date. And the issues I have with her are, number one, she has pushed for this Hollywood morality that has done untold damage to this country. And I believe it's, part of a plan. So it's not like, I blame her for, I mean, she sucks, but, this was going to go this way anyway, but she was one of the catalysts who rolled out this morality that we now see, the Hollywood morality that is so prevalent with the youth today, and all the things that she pushed, right? And, she's not a great person on top of that. She just kind of sucks on every level. And she also did all these things for attention, all the stuff that she's done to, call attention to herself. So there's those things, right? And then there is her unwillingness to just get old like everybody else and accept that she's, old and that she has a different role to play, but she still wants to be in her glory days. She still craves to be relevant, some, 18 to 25-year-old pop star that she once was. And she just hasn't accepted that life moves on and the world moves on. And she was, an icon for a while, and now she's just, a has-been. And her pushing for this thing is just hard to watch. And so, there's reasons why I go after people or, a little bit more brutal with some people. And I can't say all that in a short video, so I can understand some of the reaction from these normies. And I used to get lots of normies here, but YouTube's algorithms changed, and so my videos don't make it in front of people in the normie category, right? So normies and sheeple don't get to see my videos, so I don't get their comments anymore. And not that I love their comments when I used to get lots of them, but it was kind of refreshing to get some normie comments. And I got a whole bunch of them. I got a whole list of them to get to here because they're pretty funny. And so this is the first thing I saw this morning. There was, this was to Brittany, so I'm not, but it's, the same kind of thing. And the person said, "How unkind are you?" Right? And then another person said, "You are brutal with your commentary. You had her going south in age 30 to 40. People like you are the problem. Post pics of yourself and go to town." Well, I'm not trying to be a relevant pop star, right? Like, I'm not, claiming that I'm in some great shape, because I'm not, right? I'm old, right? I'm a fat old guy. Like, I'm not, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not trying to cover that up. These were both to Madonna Xpiration date. I thought it's just the way that the thing lined up here. And so this was, all right, this comment I'm going to get to the end. This is a different comment. So this comment isn't, a negative comment towards me, but the person writes, there's so many times people write comments that I think are to me because I'm the one reading them and I'm the one who created the video. Like, I'll make a video about JoJo Magoo and people will be saying things that, that sound like they're at me, but they're obviously for JoJo. And I ban you for being stupid. JoJo's not reading the comments. You're not talking to him, right? And so, like, you should be clear in your comments. Like, those are just bad comments, and here is one of them. So this person writes, "I think you look beautiful." Like, it sounds like it's good. "And you sing great too." Well, that's very talented. "You are very pretty," right? So this is the kind of comments I see all the time, and it's written like, doofusly to, here's that one from yesterday. So here's one. "Insulting a pipe icon, ? Dude, people always remember who Madonna is. Who are you to be throwing insults?" I'm Paul Romano. I have a YouTube channel. Let me introduce myself to you. And so this is another person. "The pressure on women, especially in Hollywood, to stay youthful looking is beyond crazy. The American culture as a whole promotes the young. I feel sadness when I see people disfigured by plastic surgery who are chasing a losing race to keep the youthful looks. I would rather age gracefully and then to be turned into something abnormal looking. Authenticity is desirable trait, both physically, mentally, and spiritually." Now, it's not a bad comment, but it's when the person says, "I feel sorry." Pity is, I think insults are better than pity. Pity feels worse, right? Pity isn't a positive thing. And then there was this one. Could you have lived your life out without putting someone down? I believe the inside of someone counts far more than the outside. Madonna has brought so much joy to the world in her life. Have you? Wow, these cutting questions. Normies are so great, right? And when people insult me, right, or they insult anybody, you've joined the fray. Like, when you go after somebody and you're coming in and saying that I'm mean or I'm this or I'm that, you're doing the same behavior. At least I'm honest about it. Like, I'm not, pretending like, it's some higher purpose here or whatever it is. I mean, there is something that I do here where I demonstrate the flaw in American consciousness that having wealth and fame is something that makes you happy and is the goal of life when it clearly isn't, right? So that's a service that I do here, that I expose, the myth, the flawed myth that being rich and famous is great for you. But again, I don't, like I'm mocking people and I own it, right? It's not but these other people come in insulting like they're somehow better than it. This person wrote, "Why delete my comment? I'm helping the algorithm." That's to a different video. Well, I didn't delete your comment. I banned people. And so that's YouTube, whatever they did. YouTube has a lot of filters that filters out comments. But now you're banned for, accusing me of something I didn't do. And then there's this one. Her face will never be as ugly as your heart, right? Apparently my face is uglier. My heart is uglier than Madonna's face. This person's a heart specialist, and they clearly know. They know. They know my heart is somehow uglier than Madonna's face. But they're perfectly fine, right? That's the another beauty of the normie hypocrisy. If you're going to go in and you're going to attack people, and I'm not doing it personally to Madonna. Like, I don't want her to see my videos. I do it kindly behind her back. The same person, are you jealous of her success or want? I think she meant what? No, I'm not. Like, I've already explained my position. I wouldn't trade my life for Madonna's or any of these other celebrities. But the jealous thing is it's the weapon of the simple mind of the normie or the sheeple. You're just jealous, right? That's their, when they have nothing else than to explain, that's their explanation. And so, and you are making money talking about her. Yes, I am. That's true. I am. That's you found me out. I actually am profiting from my mocking. Normies are great. Like I said, the comments wear on you when you get lots of them for years. I used to have videos that got hundreds of thousands and millions of views, and so many of those people were normies that weren't gonna stay here or be a part of whatever I'm doing. And so the comments just it was sucky, and I was just always banning people. But it's nice to have a little dose of normie every once in a while because their comments are great. All right, let's move on to my other topics here. Okay, so moving to these stories. This was from a couple weeks ago when Jojo Magoo, at the end of this thing, he walks away. You guys remember this here. Like, they unfortunately put these stupid things here. This is from Forbes. They're advertising other videos right at the best part of this video. But Jojo Magoo.
I often ask the question when they have more polite people with you.
Mr. President, why have you chosen Poland for your trip to mark anniversary of the...
All right, so this was the famous clip. I showed this part of the clip, but I didn't know that this was the beginning of this. I didn't know it was before it. And he says something here.
Professionals. Our diplomats will be engaging further, and I will remain in communication with President Xi.
Xi.
I'm grateful for the work of the last several weeks of our intelligence, diplomatic, and military professionals who have proved once again to be the most capable in the world.
He's not a very good speech reader.
And I want to thank you all. Now look, the other thing I want to point out is that we are going to keep our allies and the Congress contemporaneously informed of all we know and all we learn. And I expect to be speaking with President Xi, and I hope we are going to get to the bottom of this. But I make no apologies for taking down that balloon. Thank you very much.
I make no apologies for taking down that balloon. You know, like he's so braggadocious. Like the whole thing about Trump, you know, one of the reasons Trump pissed people off because he's, you know, such a bragger, he's so narcissistic. But Jojo Magoo is equally, you know, he often is feeling himself, right? And he sucks so bad at everything. Like he's a putz, and he's often, you know, I mean, he's the same as Trump in that way. And that's one of the, you know, legitimate complaints against Trump, that the liberals are, you know, feasting on Trump's braggadocious nature. And yet Jojo Magoo is just as bad, maybe even worse. And he's certainly worse as a, you know, presenter, as a, you know, personality. Like he's just, he's an incompetent, bumbling fool who's obviously broken down mentally. But on the other side of this, I was given this tweet this morning. I guess it came from Newsmax. Twitter recommended this. It was when I opened up my phone. They're not coming for me. They're coming for you. I'm just in their way. And I think he had said this earlier on, right? But he's clearly a liar, you know, because were you in their way when you did Operation Warp Speed? I mean, he just sucks so bad because he's done so many things to facilitate the takeover. I mean, so many things came from the liberal, you know, agenda was pushed through. And I don't want to call it liberalism because it's not. It's just some, you know, it's the Hollywood morality and the Hollywood, you know, the greedy controllers pushing their agenda through the hatred of Trump and using him as an excuse, and the Trumpers and the QBs and all the people in the so-called truth community as an excuse to push this stuff through, right? And Trump helped them with that by being Trump. And he didn't stand up for us. So, you know, like he was appealing to, like the truthers here. They're coming for you and I'm standing in their way. Like, you know, he's not a defender, right? He can't stand in their way. We saw that during the way they rolled him on COVID, and then the way they rolled him out of there during the electoral process. And he had nothing, right? He folded like a card house. And so, you know, but he's still pushing this stuff like he's rocking it. Okay, so something great happened last night. I recorded a basketball game. I deleted it, and the TV went to CNN, right, on DirecTV. You know, I barely watch the news anymore just to cover it here. So I was meant to see this. That's what I'm saying here. I knew nothing about this case that he's talking about, but he defines it for me here. It's great.
If the jury is correct, and I mean, Alec Murdaugh has been convicted of killing his wife and son, is that this was thought out and perhaps intentional, that he was using, it was staged.
You heard it here first. According to Anderson Cooper, it was staged. Okay, a few other things to get here. Giselle Barato Fetterman, the handler / witch, it's wife of the great man John Fetterman. In the worst moments of our lives, women are told it's their fault. Just women, not men ever. Like, men never have that happen to them. It's always women. In case you need to hear it today, it's not your fault. Kaboom! But that's only to women. If it's men, it's definitely your fault. Right? If it's men, it's definitely your fault. But women, no. It's not your fault. I will keep living and fighting with love. We all need more of it. Perspective, how Giselle Fetterman became the right wing's favorite Tucker Carlson and others' use of familiar blame women tactics in attacking Giselle Fetterman and Jill Biden. The Washington Post, she's showing you this article. And so, you know, so first of all, she had abandoned her husband. I think she's still in Canada now. I don't know where she is. When he checked himself into a mental institution for depression, he had a stroke. I mean, he sucked beforehand. Like, he wasn't great. He checked himself into the hospital because he was experiencing health difficulties after having a stroke, right? And the stroke was enough to eliminate, any, in terms of a sane world, somebody having a stroke, especially a man of that age, and then all the stuff to do with vax and all the stuff that's going on, he should have withdrawn his candidacy. But they, were so desperate to have him beat Dr. Oz, who sucked in his own right. I mean, it just shows you how bad the left and the right both are. They elected Fetterman anyway, even though he wasn't articulate before the stroke. And then after serving a month, he checked himself into the hospital because he was having the experience of Charlie Brown teacher. Like, people sound like Charlie Brown, the teachers in Charlie Brown. And then a couple weeks after that, he checked himself in the hospital for depression. So he has been not doing his job. And his wife, when she saw the media parked out in front of her house, took the kids and went to Canada. And it's not her fault. Let's just be clear on this, even though she's taking credit left and right for his candidacy and his getting elected and being his handler. It's not her fault. It just isn't. Stop blaming her, you blamers. Obviously, it's man's fault. Republicans are to blame, or Trump or somebody. But Trump's fault, but not hers. This is from 9 years ago, one of my viewers sent to me. And it's kind of interesting, of its what it means today.
They were talking about climate change yesterday, and now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right.
That's right.
Lasers now.
Lasers.
One day manipulate rain and lightning. CBS This Morning contributed.
Kaboom. So that happened 9 years ago. But I guess they failed and it didn't work, and they haven't. I guess they gave up on that. Okay, so this is 7 years ago. The Rock is talking smack to another wrestler on a Saturday Night Live sketch. One of my viewers watched this recently and sent it to me because of this.
You know that cute picture of Stacy that you've been spanking it to? It's actually a picture of Evelyn, the daughter you never met.
So, another pedo joke, right? And so he said that this guy, he's done research into him and was saying that he had fathered a daughter that he never met, and now he's saying he is, well, you heard him what he said, right? So Saturday Night Live just gets pervy and pervier, but Rock doubled down. I think it was in the same episode. Actually, this is from 5 years ago. So 7 years ago, he made that pedo joke, and this is from 5 years ago.
In the world contest, I invented a child molesting robot.
And, he goes on from here. You guys have seen this probably a number of times.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll speak up. It's a robot that is designed to molest children.
And so Saturday Night Live is, got all these pervy jokes, and The Rock particularly has doubled down on them. And so one of my other viewers sent me this. This could be Walmart dropping like flies.
Doors are closing at the only 2 Portland Walmarts, and hundreds of customers are left finding a new place to shop.
Fox 12's Connor McCarthy spoke to some of those customers.
So, let's just see the customers here. That's always interesting.
Are things like laundry detergent, trash bags, the essentials.
Walmart.
So Walmart's closing in Portland. They have 2 locations. Portland's a pretty big city, I believe. I've never been there. And they've closing their 2 Walmarts. And also in Washington, D.C.
It arrived with much fanfare, but tonight the Walmart on H Street in Northeast is closing its doors at the end of March.
So they're closing Walmarts, right? Like, I thought Walmarts were the future. So if they start closing Walmarts, what does that mean? I mean, they're closing mom and pop individual stores. But if they're getting rid of Walmarts, then what does that mean? Elon Musk sounds dire alarm about Japan. Here's the tweet. Twice as many people died in Japan last year as were born. Population free fall. The rest of the world is trending to follow. We know there's a depopulation that's happening. And it's been something they've been working on. And, you're going to see it. And it's going to hit every country. And then everything's going to change. When globally there are more people dying than being born, the energy is going to shift in a way that's going to be hard to imagine. And things will follow suit after that. But Elon Musk also tweeted this. Most people still think China has a one-child policy. China has its lowest birth date ever, he meant birth rate ever last year, despite having a three-child policy. At current birth rates, China will lose 40% of the people every generation. Population collapse. So Elon's concerned about the population. So Wendy Williams said this.
Your marriage is about to be all the way over. You open the wine. I'm just waiting for him to come home. I'm gonna be 2 bottles in. By myself. That's right now. He comes home, and I went ham.
And she's got some big hams. She's got some big mitts there. She's got those giant hands, right? This dude. I mean, Wendy Williams, what happened to Wendy? Somebody sent me this. It's kind of hilarious.
And he tried to deny, and I went hammer.
Wait, did someone say hammer?
Demanding to know, where's Nancy?
Stop the hammering out there. Who's got a hammer? Where is it?
I don't know.
Where's the hammer? Is it on the... Go up on the other floor. Somebody go up there and stop the hammering. Stop the hammering. Call fuck Griffin. I don't care who the fuck to call. Stop the hammering. Empty out the goddamn control room and find out where this is going on. It's either there, or out there somewhere. Out of control. Jesus Christ. Crazy sound coming in my ear. This stupid hammering. I told you why I wanted those words cut. It just sucks. It sucks to be out here with this out of control Any thing can come into my ear at any moment. These things. How do you say this guy's last name?
Demanding to know, where's Nancy?
And he tried to deny, and I went hammer. And then opened another bottle of wine. Then I went hamish. And I had no reason to lower my voice.
Because your voice is low enough.
Or not rock my neck. Because my son's away in college. I am like screaming like a raving lunatic.
That doesn't sound like you, Wendy.
It's the culmination of everything. Everything. You will not get away with trying to pull off having 2 families, you dirty, low-down dog.
It just doesn't seem like that's such a bad insult, right? Dirty, low-down dog. I mean, I don't know. Does that really even bother somebody if somebody calls you a dirty, low-down dog? You got to come up with something better than that, Wendy. Okay, bipartisan Senate group molds Social Security Investment Fund higher retirement age. So they're going to make it harder and longer for you to retire because, that's happening. Because there's no money left, right? Social Security is going to disappear, and I wouldn't count on it. If it doesn't disappear, everything will be so inflated. Look, they got a nifty little phone holder there. The dollar will be so inflated that it won't matter because the money you're going to get will be basically worthless. Disgraceful Meghan Harry provoked King Charles to evict them, royal expert says. Harry and Meghan provoked him, King Charles, with Harry's disgraceful book and interviews he gave. Then there was this one. King Charles will evict Harry Meghan from Frogmore Cottage, giving it to Andrew. This guy, Andrew, who is... Where is he? There he is. The guy who's basically a convicted pedo. Paid some girl $12 million, though he didn't do anything. He just wanted the thing over with. In a lawsuit because Jeffrey Epstein supplied him with like a 15 or 16-year-old girl who grew up and sued him. And somehow he's less of an embarrassment than this guy. So he's given the cottage to the pedo. Apparently, one of the things he said in the book was this. It said here that the King Charles joked about Harry's real father. And this is what he said. Pa liked to tell stories, and this was one of the best in his repertoire. He'd always end with a burst of philosophizing. Who knows if I'm really the Prince of Wales? Who knows if I'm even your real father? Kaboom. All right, so I'm editing and I want to include this. There's a guy called Jimmy Savile, or a former guy called Jimmy Savile, who was like the Dick Clark, like the satanic or more satanic Dick Clark or Ryan Seacrest of England. And he was great pals with Prince Charles, King Charles now. And, you know, he makes Jeffrey Epstein look like, you know, a candy stripe or whatever the saying is. He had thousands of victims that came forward after he died. And he had complete access to Buckingham Palace. He could just walk in to the palace anytime he wanted to. There's pictures with him and Prince Charles and him and the Pope and Diana and all these famous people. And they, well, let's just go to this clip. There's a video that I had to re-find it because they had deleted it, but I found it again. Was Jimmy Savile a wizard? Full documentary. Somebody posted this 9 years ago. It's very interesting. Let's play just one short clip of it. So first it says he was born on Halloween. And the second was he was a seventh son. And it goes on, there's a long list. But this is what he had to say about it. The people in his village thought he was a witch.
His co-workers suspected he was a witch. As a Bevan boy, Jimmy Savile's fellow miners thought Jimmy Savile was a witch.
Now then, nobody but nobody ever did 8 hours down a pit and came back as immaculate as the set-off with white shirt and everything like that. They were quite convinced I was a witch. If you go to South Kirby now, you'll get some of the old miners when you say, Jimmy Savile's done well, hasn't he? Ah, and he'll look around and he'll say, he's not what you think you know. The forces of darkness are at work there.
So when the story broke in England, this was a huge scandal, and you know some people knew about it over here in America. Much worse than Jeffrey Epstein. He was a real player in the government. You know, they have the big Freemasonic issues there, and with the Queen's cousin or whatever he is. He's the head of the Freemasons. Her husband was Freemason. All these guys, and so there's that. And this guy, Jimmy Savile, had, like again, hundreds upon hundreds of victims. They said he was abusing the dead and that he was some sort of like witch or warlock, right? And King Charles and him were pals. Like they were often, you know, seen together, right? And for him to be upset because of a book that his son wrote, or his alleged son, right? When he was palling around with this guy and his brother Andrew was palling around with Jeffrey Epstein, you know, like the double standard here. The revelations from all his victims came out after he died, and nobody suffered. All his friends, all his enablers, all of his handlers, all these people around him. And King Charles was like his bestie, right? Baby teaser, Brooke Shields stands her ground in career-spanning documentary. So that happened. I don't know if it's going to talk about how she was a young girl and she was sexualized in a movie where she was like 15 years old or something like that. Scientists unveil corridor discovered in the Great Pyramid of Giza using cosmic rays. The findings of an internal research team were announced at a news conference with Egyptian officials outside the 456-foot-tall pyramid. We could not build those pyramids today. We don't have the machinery or the technology to build them the way they're built. And, you know, because they were built by a higher developed race, more advanced than we are now, which, you know, people don't like to tell you, but it's there. And that's all the Freemason stuff, the great architect, all that stuff. So I have a few leftover comments or comments just that came in that I was reading when I was editing this video, and then a couple of more substantial comments I want to get to. And so somebody wrote this: she looks fabulous, pushing 70, and probably a lot better than you looked 10 years ago. Kaboom! She got me. These normies are great. This person says, you don't sound so cute, buddy, so. Wait, I'm not cute? I'm not cute. You don't think I'm cute? That hurts my feelings. Like, I am not saying that I'm cute. I'm not like, that's not a belief of mine, right? I'm not trying to be cute. Maybe when I was a kid I was cute. Certainly I'm not cute now, right? Like they think they're getting me by saying I'm not cute as Madonna or whatever. These normies are the best. Let me see. There's some more here. Some of these are some of the best. You are a pig. This is a kind of an old. The person just calls me a pig. And the thing about this is, they're saying that I'm insulting her. And therefore they get to insult me. This is how the human mind works. Like they can't, they can't understand that they're doing the same behavior by telling me I'm not cute, telling me I'm ugly, telling me I'm a pig, all these things. And again, it doesn't bother me. And they're doing it directly to me. I'm not doing it to Madonna. Like I wouldn't say anything to her. I'm not, why would I? This is, the epitome of the, well, here's another person. So, I said, stay away from Alec Baldwin for your sake. So this is a short video I made about Alec Baldwin looking homeless and things like this in a short video. And this person writes, hilarious. A man being laughed at that looks sad and homeless with a bunch of emojis. OMG, so funny. His life is destroyed. Ha, 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 ha. He made people laugh. He just has been in movies, TV, and SNL. Wow, what a loser. Ha, 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 ha. Was married to a goddess. Won awards. So funny. Laughing at his sadness. Ha, 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 ha. This is lots of emojis I'm not even saying. Whoa, that was great. That was great, question mark. You're laughing at this, question mark. You should be having compassion for him and be ashamed of laughing at others' misfortune. This is great. He's looking more homeless every day, question mark. 3 of them. They all have 3 question marks. You must love driving down Skid Row and laughing at the tents and the homeless. So great, so funny. Well, no, that's not at all. It's not the same thing. How cruel and inhumane. He is a person. You are lower than the lowest. Kick them when they're down. You're the loser. He's just having a horrible moment in his life. You should be ashamed. Why are you doing this? God, right? The normie mind, the sheeple mind, the people who are connected to the mainstream, their inability to grasp their own behavior and self-reflect, because saying hostile things to me, which again, I find funny, and they're saying it directly to me, like I said. I'm not saying these things to Alec. I wouldn't say them personally to his face or whatever. He watches the videos. He watches the videos. He's not the intended audience, though. And, the things that he's done in terms of the way he went after Trump and the way he went after Trumpers and the way he was, so happy about Trump's demise in these things. And, how he mocked Trump for years on SNL, and you didn't have a problem with that, right? And so he was a horrible person, and they do whatever they do, but that's not, I don't have to justify it, right? Like, it's funny, and whether you get it or not, it doesn't matter to me, right? And so this is the mind of the normie. But I have some more seriouser questions or comments. And this person writes, I was talking about the issue with, the slavery and racism and things like this. And I was talking about how for African Americans and black people, there's an unresolved feeling like that slavery was never addressed properly by the powers that be. The effects of slavery on their culture and the people that of now the ancestors of slaves. And white people, for the most part, had nothing to do. The majority of white people had no direct connection to slavery in terms of, many of them were indentured servants or they came from other parts of the world. I mean, there's slave owners in every culture and every race around the world. There's stories of slavery. The Native American tribes took slaves, and there were slaves in Africa. Black people took slaves, each other, and then sold those. There's a slave trade where they sold these slaves to white people. So it's it's more than just a white people problem, right? So I was talking about this, right? It's something that hasn't been resolved, and I can see both sides of it. And so some person who really didn't understand my point of view wrote this comment to that video. You say white people today have nothing to do with slavery. White people as a race benefit from slavery and genocide of blacks. They're ahead today because of what the slave masters did, even if they didn't own slaves. And you admit white people won't own up to benefiting from slavery, so black people are right to resent them. It's not racist for blacks to rightfully resent a group that are ahead by wronging them. And saying no compassion for slavery is BS. Jews get reparations from the Holocaust. France gave reparations from Haiti, and slaves revolted, and France lost money. What I was saying in that video and another video is how long of a shelf life does abuse have? When the last slave is dead, right? The last person was a slave was dead, and the last slave owner is dead. How long is it something that lasts beyond that? Because the one thing I would say is the resentment against all white people is wrong. Just like the resentment of all Jewish people or hatred of all black people or Spanish people, because these cultures are different and individuals are different. If you understand reincarnation, which is, it's just something that's true whether you believe it or not. Like, I'm not, there's no way to prove it to you, so I'm just, whatever. But you would, incarnate as different people, different sexes, different races, different whatever. And so what if a person was a slave in a past life and is a white person in this life, right? And they suffered as a slave in a previous life and they're a white person in this life, right? So they get punished for something that they suffered from, or they were Native American in a previous life and now they're a white person. They were a man in a previous life and now they're a woman, right? And so, this idea of generational accountability doesn't work, because you're not responsible for your ancestors. You're not. You're not responsible for your parents. You're not responsible for anything that anybody did before you. You're responsible for what you do. And maybe collectively, collectively we're all responsible for everything that everybody does. Like to nature and, whatever. The condition of humanity. We all have a share in that, right? We all have a share in what we're doing right now. And there's abuses going on right now that Americans, I don't know if you can hear the rain, it's pounding on the roof. Americans are abusing other people, right? Our country has gamed, and not just our country, England, Europe, the European countries, rich people all over the world have gamed the system and are exploiting nature and other people. They're slaves today. Whether you want it, there's like something like 28 million slaves, and then there's wage slaves, there's servants, and there's lower castes and lower classes, and it's just it's an abusive system still right now. And in America, we benefit from it. We all do, materially. Spiritually, we suffer. And at some point, even the abuses that happen to you in this life, you have to get over them, because you just do. It hurts you, right? Victim consciousness hurts the victim more than anything else and the people around them. Is largely a part of the whole abusive slave-master dynamic that human beings are kept down by, right? I've talked about this in the past. Human beings have this victim-abuser power versus powerlessness, slave/master mentality, and it's it plagues humanity. Let's move on to the next. I could talk about this for longer, but I have in other videos, and this is just addressing comments. And here's another comment. So a video for people meditating together on Sunday. So this is for people who are meditating together with me, all of us together, on Sunday, and we're doing the Sajmarg method of meditation that I do. And it's for people who have done heartfulness in the past, and, you know, I talked about this in the beginning of the video. I'm no longer a part of the heartfulness organization, and so I'm, you know, meditating anyway, and I thought, well, maybe we could all do it together if you want to. If you don't, fine, right? But the title of the video is A Video for People Meditating Together on Sunday, and it's what we're doing here. And this person writes, I meditate on the Word of God written by the Holy Spirit moved prophets to author the contents. Jesus has a free gift of forgiveness, spiritual rebirth from above, new flesh, and inheritance to share. That offer is too good to resist. I want him. I want everything he has. I look in my faith and his blood in the gospel of mercy and grace that is receiving a gift at the cross. He died, was buried, and resurrected for us. What does that have to do with my video? We're doing something completely else, and this is a huge problem. I've addressed it before. You know, I have a lot of great Christian viewers, lots of Christian viewers that pray for me and wish me well, and, you know, and they don't leave comments like this. So this isn't, you know, I'm not condemning Christians, but Christians like this, and truthers like this, and any group. The video isn't about you and your thing, and you have a YouTube channel, and there's plenty of Christian YouTube channels out there, and I would never go to any of those channels and talk about my thing. If you had a video out there and I was watching it, which I wouldn't be, and it said something about you meditating on your, you know, whatever you just said here in the comment to this person, if I saw that video, I wouldn't say, hey, guess what I do, right? It just, you know, it's being an a-hole. It's being narcissistic. You're telling me what you're doing, which has nothing to do with what we're doing. This is a video specifically for people doing the meditation. I addressed this before. I said, for those of you who are doing this, you can comment. I'm going to leave a video up for commentary on the video. And so I said when I first put this up there that people could comment on their experiences doing the meditation. And somebody asked me if I was a Tartarian and Christian and whether that was okay. And I said, no, it's not okay to comment like that because that's not what the video's about, right? And I asked for specific feedback for people doing the meditation. It's a group where people are doing this meditation, right? It's a video for them. And if you're not doing it, there's no need to watch it or comment on it, right? And I got another comment, I don't know if it was from the same person, saying, well, I'll comment on anything and I like, and, you know, a bunch of other, like, insulting things towards me. And, you know, like childish stuff. And, you know, it's just inappropriate. We know what you do. Like, you think that there's anyone in America that doesn't know what this guy just said, the story about Jesus is, right? You know, people grew up in Christianity. I'm a Catholic. I grew up in Catholicism, and I've heard this over and over again. We know about your stuff. We know about what Christians believe. You don't have to tell us. And it's inappropriate to do so, right? There's just no reason for it. Like, it's about something else. If a video is about something else, and you're going, no, let me talk about my thing, you're boop, a selfish boop, right? And that's not a good reflection on Christ, right? Because, again, you're not going to win people over by doing that. You're just going to piss them off and give Christians a bad name, or whatever group, truthers or whatever you are, right? There's a level of just kind of understanding what is going on socially and then blasting something out that nobody cares about, nobody asked for, because you want to talk about you, right? It has nothing to do with the context of the video or the conversation that's going on. Well, that's just, you know, narcissism. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.